Well, good afternoon. Day 41 of our 99 days. Today I want to have a third session on relationships, and this time about the intimate, loving relationships. We'll call it the serious ones, whether you're married or have a partner or those relationships. Can I wait a little moment if someone wants to join today live? But I do realize it's getting really messy, the schedule this week. So, yes, and this is a topic that's really very close to my heart. And something that the relationships in my past and the recent one have showed me so much and learned me so much about myself. And it is a different dynamic from your family relations or your friendships you have. And yes, it's so interesting that so many relationships have challenges, especially when they last longer. And it all starts well. We all start falling in love. And then after a while it changes. And why does that happen? And that's really something very interesting to watch at. And to look at, because why is it that falling in love or being in love, like you are in the first year or the first months, why doesn't that last? What's actually happening in that process? And I believe that when you fall in love with someone, and especially when that happens when two persons fall in love at the same time, then you have this connection together which makes you feel completely one with a person. So this is this oneness I think we're all looking for. Because when you fall in love, you feel completely different than when you're not in love, especially these first months. And you feel like you can conquer the world. You are on top of everything. You are relaxed. Everything looks beautiful and shiny, and not just your new partner you found, but also life itself feels more light and easy. And I believe that is because you are so in touch with love, actually with the love with a big capital L, that you feel this oneness with yourself, this complete self-love for a period of time. Because the other person actually let you feel, as he or she is falling in love with you, how that actually feels. So it's the first time you can completely open up to yourself, guided by the other person that loves you so much or shows the love for you. And in this period of being in love, especially when it's just happening to you, kind of overwhelming feeling, then you literally super high your frequency. So you can't feel your insecurities at that moment so much. You can't feel the victim role or the conflict role, or that's all not happening in that moment, in these weeks or months. It just feels all very complete and happy. But then after a period of time, that feeling gets less, and then you kind of lower in your frequency. Well, kind of, you're literally lowering your frequency. Because somehow your complete love for yourself is not complete yet. It's temporarily filled in that gap by the other person. But as you cannot hold that frequency together for so long, then when after a certain period of time you actually realize unconsciously that gap of self-love is still there. And then what happens is that you're actually expecting the other person, your new partner, to fill in that gap for you. Because there is this basis of, because you do love each other, there's this basis of security and safety with the other person. And this longing actually for being together and not being by yourself anymore. So there's this need to stay in this relationship because you wanna have that complete feeling again of pure love. And once you've touched and experienced that, you don't want to be alone anymore, because then you go into separation. So this feeling of deep connecting feels so good that it's almost addictive, you could say. And because you want to hang on to it so strongly, you actually expect the other person to become more responsible for that than yourself. And this is a very subtle process. But you suddenly, after a while, will become your old self again, the one that is less in love. And then the old habits come up again, and your little annoyances start with each other, the little irritations. And then you actually start to project everything that is not complete within you, you start to project on your partner. So I've said before, like, you make me so happy is a wrong sentence. It's you make me feel my happiness is the right sentence. And even I love you, it's questionable if that is the right sentence, if that's really unconditional, or is it I love you conditional? I expect you to make me happy. And of course, these are all very subtle patterns, not so clearly, and you can still have weeks, months where you feel this complete love again, but over the years, you see it changing. And then there's still that deep love for each other, but also other habits and other patterns have entered the relationship. And then, to me, this weird thing actually happens, that from in a situation where you actually are with the one you love most, you actually start to almost test every boundary, test everything within the relationship to see if the relationship can hold. So you can become how should I put that? People can become very annoyed and irritated and losing the fun and getting bored. Whatever happens in the relationship, it just doesn't have that great feeling from the beginning. And you see the same thing often happening at the intimate side of the relationship. That side suddenly gets way less attention than it did in the beginning. So why is that? It could be, of course, that it's simply not the right person. And in many times, people start relationships more from the mind than from the heart. Like it's a good fit. It ticks the boxes. So then I contemplated on actually the different levels of attraction you have with a partner. And I came to 5 different levels, which I think should all be somehow equally in balance to have a relationship that is nourishing and fruitful and where you can grow. And these 5 levels are, you can start at the bottom, actually your lowest chakra. So you have the sexual attraction. Then you have the physical attraction, is 1 layer higher. Then you have the personal attraction. It's more like the personality you like in the other person, the sense of humor, the way that he or she cares for you, whether the person is sociable or not, things like that. So that's more the personal attraction. And then you have the intellectual attraction. Are you interested in the same things? Can you explore things that happen outside your relationship, and can you talk about that? And are you interested in each other's professions or jobs or activities? And then the last attraction is the soul attraction. So that's the deeper level. You could also say the heart attraction. But it goes deeper than just love. It's really like, are you a partner for me? That I want to explore things at a deep level within me. And all these different levels of attraction need somehow to be there. Just a physical attraction is not the same thing as physically and sexually attracted to someone. And just ticking the boxes on personal and intellectual level is not enough, because then after a while it gets a little rusty on the sexual attraction. In the beginning it's fine, but then that doesn't hold because it's not enough. And if the highest level, highest in chakra sense, if you look at it from a chakra view, then at this soul level, this is kind of this unspoken agreement you have. Like we connect on a deeper level, and we can help each other to grow in life and to heal our wounds and to heal our emotions. And we can create a safe place for each other to support each other and to hold space for each other. So all these 5 different levels, I think, should be preferably in balance there. And if it's not in balance, then at least it's very helpful to become aware of it. So if you are in a relationship with a partner, perhaps it's interesting to look at those 5 different levels. And for instance, if the physical attraction has always been minimal, it's really hard to change that. And when one of these levels gets really, when they were first in balance, one of these levels gets really out of balance, then you notice that the relationship also gets out of balance. Like people who are in a long-lasting relationship and don't share intimacy anymore. And I know that from my coaching practice. It's a huge topic and a huge issue for many relationships. Because in this intimacy process is actually there where you are most vulnerable with each other. But it's also the same moment where you actually disconnect from each other. So if the relationship is out of balance, it shows in this interaction that's no longer happening, this intimacy that's no longer happening. Because what you're actually doing is you're taking distance from the other partner, and taking that distance it's really difficult to still be intimate with someone. So then you start to reject each other, and which feels very uneasy and unsafe for the other partner and for yourself even. And it seems very hard for couples to break through this balance in a relationship, because it's a very sensitive. It's sensitive to talk about relationship issues. It feels very vulnerable to share actually what you miss in a relationship with the other person. And it's even more difficult to, even if you have shared it, to change it, to change the pattern, the dynamic you have together. But you still say that you are in love with each other. So what does that love mean then? If love doesn't mean you can be vulnerable and can open up to each other, why would you say you are in love? What's then the difference between friendship and being a couple? And of course, when children are involved in a relationship, it makes it hard to step out of it, because you have this shared responsibility and the love for the children that you don't want to lose the relationship or divorce or whatever. But it's more interesting to find out why and at which of these 5 levels I mentioned of attraction, of connection. You can also call it connection, sexual connection, physical connection, personal connection, intellectual and soul connection. But on which of these 5 levels are you out of balance? And are you out of balance temporarily, or can it be healed together? Can you open up? Can you discuss it with your partner? Can you find ways to connect again at that level? And is it the same for both? Because if you feel uncomfortable in your relationship, or you just don't really take it as your priority any longer, then the connection at personal level also changes. They become irritated with each other and annoyed, and you project everything on each other. But why is that happening? Why are you suddenly changing your behavior? Or suddenly, why have you done it over time? And I don't really believe in ever long-lasting relationship with pure monogamy and no attraction to other people. It can happen, and there are many cases that it does. But either both persons sacrifice a lot in life and they just settle for less, or they are just happy together and it's more than enough, but they're both equally happy with it. Or they get into a long disbalanced relationship where actually it's hard to move. They can't really change it, they can't really accept it, and they can't step out of it. They're kind of stuck. And in my experience, And also in what I learned from the coaching sessions I had on this topic is that if you can't be intimate together any longer, not even the little things like touching, hugging, kissing, if that doesn't happen anymore, you really disconnect from each other. So if there's any way to start somewhere, if something is out of balance, then it's to start there. And it's a very difficult one to start because you feel so, you're defending yourself when you don't feel in balance with the relationship, when you feel uncomfortable there. So your defense mechanisms come up. And it's really difficult to open up to each other then. And lots of excuses come up in the mind. Too tired, too busy, we'll do it next day, we'll do it next month, we'll do it next week. And it's very painful for people to be in a relationship and miss that part, that intimacy part. Because you feel more lonely when you're with someone you can't share on a deeper level together. You feel more lonely than you are without a partner. Because you constantly show each other that gap of missing self-love, which is there, probably by both partners. And you try to defend yourself and not feel that gap in your heart. But actually, you want the contrary. You want to be completely open up and be healed and be held by the other person. And when your relationship is no longer a priority in your life, you just take it as a given, but you don't really spend energy on it and take it as your first focus, your first priority. Then literally you take energy out of the relationship. And you start to distract. For instance, you work harder, or you're focused more on the children, and less on your partner, or you're focused on other people, other friends, or you even flirt outside the relationship or have an affair. And then that you're actually literally taking energy out of the relationship. And the other person feels that it's out of balance, but doesn't know how to react or doesn't know how to deal with it and doesn't really know what's happening. And then that feels so uncomfortable and so unsafe that things like jealousy come up, or distrust, or suspicion, and lots of interpretations happening. And it's never, in relationships that are going on for many years, it's never ever one thing that's the cause of the disbalance. It just happened over time. And you don't really know when it started. And when I was in my marriage, I felt it was really out of balance for me. It was really challenging to find out what was actually missing in the relationship for me. It took me many years even to acknowledge it to myself that it was out of balance. And it took me at least another 2 years before I could really find out what it was that it was out of balance. And finally, for me, it was this soul level that was out of balance. I couldn't grow in the relationship for myself. And I could also see that I couldn't support my partner in that. We kind of had this dynamic that didn't work any longer at that level. So it's a very complicated process. Complicated feelings, and for each and every one it's very personal how deep you want to go in these levels of connection, how important that is. So if I say people settle for less, it doesn't mean it's not as important. They just have different standards, different standard how to look at their relationship. For me, there was this deep longing of being able to constantly grow in a relationship for myself, my own personal development, like what I'm sharing with you in these 99 days. Just exploring and deepening myself. But that's obviously not something that everybody's drawn to. And if you have had different partners in the past, but somehow you've always after a year or shorter, or after a couple of years, left the relationship again, or was left by the other person, then reflect back on how relationships start for you. Are you really falling in love, or is it happening more on a mental level? Like it feels like it's a good partner, or it shows like it's a good partner. More on a rational level than really on deep falling in love. Or do you fall in love with someone because you rather have someone than being alone? And even if that someone doesn't connect at all these 5 levels, it's okay. So this is very personal, what is important to you. But if it costs you constantly a lot of energy, then, and if you're not happy, then you should really reflect on which level it's not working for you. And perhaps that's a way to open up to your partner and start a discussion or dialogue. And sometimes it's needed to find support with that. Because it's sometimes so difficult to get out of these old patterns and really open up to each other, and not to project anymore, and to really actually fall in love again. And then you have this topic on twin flames and soulmates you meet. I think I'll save this one for another time, but that's also an interesting one. What is it why we feel attracted to people? And besides feeling that close connection with someone, it's also the balance of the masculine and feminine energy that's happening. And it doesn't mean whether you have same sexes or different sexes. You still have, even in lesbian or homosexual relationship, there's still a balancing act of masculine and feminine energy. So perhaps there's a sixth level to the five ones already mentioned, is the attraction on the masculine and feminine energy. So most of the time, women tend to have a little more feminine energy and men a little more masculine energy, but it doesn't have to be like that. But it is true that if you have more masculine energy, then you are attracted to a person with a more feminine energy in a healthy connection. And I will share some other time on the differences in masculine and feminine energy. And on the twin flames and soulmates topic. Okay, well, I'll leave it for now, for today. A little short session, perhaps, on a very complicated subject, and it feels like I want to dive deeper into this one and talk about vulnerability in relationships a bit more, and jealousy. So let's see this. Take this one as the first session on this topic. Okay, see you back tomorrow. Bye.